right. Good morning, everyone, or whenever you're listening to this. We got Skip back onto the podcast here. We're getting so many guests that, Skip's becoming like almost on the guest himself.
Yeah.
Rather than one of the primary hosts.
Yeah.
And anyways, we are hitting the end of the year here, and we wanted to talk about a problem that happens in MSPs, and it happens in internal IT everywhere. It's largely ghosting your own customers, ghosting vendors, just not communicating well.
Yep.
And it kind of, how irksome it is. Like, from our side, like, hey, we're trying to talk to you as a software vendor, and we get it. You don't have time to talk to vendors. But I remember being in internal IT and giving lectures on pick up your phone.
Yes.
If you're busy, pick up your phone.
Yep.
If you're not busy, let it go to voicemail. Because voicemail costs you something like 4 or 5 phone calls or 12 minutes per voicemail you receive. Because you're gonna call them back. You're gonna listen to the voicemail, or you're gonna get your text in your email, and you're going to call them back. They're not going to be at their desk. You're gonna leave them a voicemail. They're gonna listen to that and call you back. So you're gonna play phone tag for a little bit.
Yep.
If you do get a hold of them, it's kind of out of context. They have to pull up the application or whatever is going on, and so you run out of. You're costing yourself so much time. Whereas if you'd picked up the phone in the moment and just responded to them quickly, it would have cost you far less time.
Yep.
So if you want more time in your day, pick up the phone.
And then maybe it might be a stretch. So I can kind of counter this with a couple other thoughts. You're working on something, you've got a train of thought going, and the phone rings, right? And so if you stop what you're doing to take that phone call, then you kind of have to, re-engage with whatever it is you're going to do. And yes, there's all kinds of efficiencies there. But if you'll stop and take a look at all of the things you have on your plate, and if you were to think, wow, what if a third or even just a fourth of these things went away? How much more efficient would I be in working on the things that are left? And by just taking that call, or just providing that response, that even if it's not the ultimate answer, just providing an answer there will help reduce the amount of clutter that you have keeping you from getting work done. So, so I don't want anybody turning this off going, oh, I can't, if I'm configuring, some complex set of rules in a firewall, I can't stop to take a phone call. I've got to think through this, or I'll leave an IP any statement in there. No, that's not. We're not saying you don't need to focus, but you got to realize how this is going to affect your overall productivity.
Yeah, and we were talking about this before the call started, and it was if you want to help your overall productivity, like what Skip said, you might be thinking, well, I am productive. I'm doing fine with my clients, and they're not calling me. That's because I'm doing a good job. You're still ghosting your clients.
Yeah.
Just because you're working happily in the background doesn't mean they don't know that you're there. They might say that, oh, well, everything's running smoothly now. What do I need an IT department for? I'm going to downgrade my contract. I'm going to go to this cheaper solution because I don't need as much support anymore.
Yep.
And so then you go through the whole panic attack of showing them how many tickets you're closing every month, how they need to keep staying with you. Otherwise, things are going to go back to the way they were. When a simple 5-minute phone call once a month to the company, or once a week, or however big they are, a nice little cadence of, hey, I just want to check in and make sure everything's going well. We've been working hard. We've got some good ideas for you. We'd like to do a QBR where we can talk about where we're going next quarter, what you're doing to kind of realign. That little 3-minute phone call can undo tens of thousands of dollars of damage by not responding.
Yeah.
And I like to think of us as a bunch of Gen Xers, right? Gen Xers are like, just shut up and leave me alone. I'll do my job. Just stop bothering me. IT engineers tend to be the same way. Just let me do my job. The number of times I've heard that in my career, the number of times I've said that in my career, just stop inviting me to meetings. Just let me do my job. I just want to work. Well, you still need to communicate. You still have to talk about things. You still have to perceived value is important. If they don't see you working, if they don't hear from you, you stop existing. If you're ghosting your own customers, you're losing revenue and you're putting all your clients at risk.
Yep. Well, and how many times do you not hear from a client and you think everything is good, but when you dig into it, they're actually waiting on your response. Right? The last conversation you have was, generally everything is good, but you're going to check on something else for them.
Yep.
You're going to look at another opportunity, and maybe you did, or it's on your list and you haven't done that yet, but there's still this pending apprehension from your client. So like, I don't know. They said they were going to get back to me and I haven't heard anything. It's been a week. It's been a month. It's been however long, and so there have this pent up sort of tension in the relationship, and that causes problems. So even if your response is, hey, this is still something I'm looking into, I will follow up with you and let you know, that's a response. That reduces that tension on their side. They're like, okay, I know he's busy. They're doing a great job. I'm not worried about it. He's still got it on his radar. I'm comfortable with that. And that is, I think for me, that is one of the challenges I run with. Because when I give an answer, I want it to be complete. I want it to be good.
Perfect.
I take pride in my work. And so I want to really, deliver something. And sometimes it takes longer than what we would like it to take. Right? And that effort to deliver good quality can destroy so much of your other work. So that not ghosting your clients, not ghosting your peers, your coworkers, that is a really important element, so that as people view you, they say, yeah, it might take them a little while. They may laugh. Yeah, he said a week. It's probably going to be 3 weeks, but it's okay. They're okay with that because you've connected with them. You're not ghosting them and then showing up with a wonderful idea. All right. You're kind of building anticipation. Maybe that's the way to look at it.
Yeah. And that communication cadence, and we talk about cadence a lot on this podcast. If you guys have listened for long-time listeners here, we talk about how important it is to have a cadence because it helps you do things that you don't want to do. You just kind of like say, I'll get to that someday. No. If you put it on the cadence, that means you have to get it done. Like I have to do my bookkeeping. I have to do like these things that I really am not strong at doing. When it comes to your personal life and you have these touch points, and keying off that to let Skip expand on what a touch point is. The personal life, like, do you have friends you just have not heard from in years or like a really long time? Like they just completely disappear. And then all of a sudden you get a response and you talk right away. But then it's kind of weird. Or you have friends that like, you're always the one reaching out and they never reach back. And that's just who they are.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that relationship? Yeah. How is that going? Like, Andrea and I are very good. Like we try to reach out. Like I am terrible. Like I'll forget about somebody and like, oh crap, I haven't talked to that person in years. But we're really good about reaching out, inviting people over, having friends over, and maintaining relationships. So our community continues to grow. And that should be the way you treat your businesses. Well, why are you inviting friends over? Is it because there's an event? Is that the only reason you have family to your house? Is that the only reason you have friends come over to your house? Or do you invite people like, hey, we haven't gotten together in a while. We're going to do a board game party. We're going to do a card party. Mm-hmm. These are as old as time people. And they're there because you have to connect with people. So when your clients, hey, let's get together for a QBR. It doesn't have to be a QBR, but having like a function there gives them an excuse to get together. Relationships with businesses are not very much different than relationships with people. If you're treating businesses like a cash register, you're not treating them like the people they are. If you treat your friends as a way to get into a theme park or the way to get into backstage passes to an event, if you're using them to get something, that's a transactional relationship. Yes. Is it really going to maintain strength? How do you move it from a transactional relationship into an emotional one? And that's where you are with your businesses and your clients. You want to move them from a transactional, hey, I pay you, you pay, I do this service, you do this service, as transactional. What if it was a relationship instead of a transactional relationship where you're just doing things for each other?
Right. That's an interesting connection there, because if you don't reach out, you won't maintain those relationships. So if we treat our business relationships that same way, if we limit it to we only engage when we have to, all right? It means they have to buy something, right? So they reach out. I need a new whatever, right? Well, now you're just a salesman, all right? You're just a vending machine in some aspects, all right?
Yeah.
Or they don't reach out until bad things happen, all right? Well, now, rather, it is great that they reach out and you can fix stuff, but you're building a dark cloud around yourself when that's your only type of relationship.
Yeah.
You're basically becoming, the harbinger of bad things, right? Even though you're not bringing them on, you're fixing them. If that's your only interaction with your clients, they're going to see you as that negative sort of thing eventually. And you've got to change that dynamic by intentionally reaching out and not something bad.
And that's where we need to talk a little bit about intentionality, right? And I call it cadence. You can call it intentionality. You can call it updating your contacts, right? Whatever you want to do. Remember the old Rolodex? You went through your Rolodex, call somebody, make sure you have all their information right. We don't really do that anymore. And a lot of you younger people are like, what are you talking about?
What's a Rolodex? Watch?
But Skip has something he's got built into the software called touchpoint alerting, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we have this whole big process where we put a playbook in and it shows you when you should be meeting with somebody based upon their size. And you can build this here's what I want to be able to do with my large clients. And then there's something called touchpoint alerting. And what do you call it, Skip? It's a safety net.
Yeah. I mean, and people want to configure it. And I'm like, no, you don't configure the safety net.
Yeah.
It's just
the safety net is just to say, I have not talked to this person. I haven't even touched their stuff in a year. Yeah. Give me a warning. Hey, this person's going so well, you have not logged into their portal.
Yeah.
Let us just it is hey, you haven't called your mom in 6 months. You should probably do that.
You should probably do that. Yes.
And there's some people you just don't want to be alerted on. Oh, it's fine to talk to them. I rather they go work with somebody else. That's okay.
Uh-huh.
You
can create a segment for those.
the touch point alerting, sometimes I feel like I need that in my own person. Man, you have not talked to your friend in 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, has it been 4 months? I mean, life gets busy, especially when you have kids. You get to school year where you're going from activity to activity, and you're like, man, I really miss going out. Just the other day, I'm going to give a call out to my friends Phil and Holly Adams. They reached out to us out of the blue and had 2 extra tickets. Remember when you can win tickets off of the radio, Skip?
Oh, yes.
So they had both won tickets to the Lincoln Symphony Orchestra. Huh. And they know that we love the orchestra as well.
Yeah.
And it was a Love, Lost, and Eternity concert. They did 3 movements with 3 different composers, and it was fantastic. And, Andrew and I when was the last time, we went out with 2 friends and just hung out. And that's what parenthood does to you. But if we had set up a cadence, if we had set up a routine to reach out and set up these dinner dates and stuff, it would have been better. And just like with your client, you get into these bad things where you ghost them. Maybe you don't intend to ghost them, but you do. You don't intend to ghost your friends. Life just gets busy. You don't intend to create space between you and your family. It just kind of happens. But that's where intentionality comes into play, where you have to think about, I need to put energy into these relationships, be it business or personal or whatever, so that I can have the life that we all want. So I can maintain these relationships and we could all have a transaction there of, hey, I care for you, you care for me. And sometimes you may forget me, but I still care about you. And then you get that reciprocal. So there's a second thing here called a yes spiral. And this goes with personal relationships and business relationships. A yes spiral is when you say, hey, I'll do this for you. And then the other person has that little bit of guilt, right? Oh man, they did that thing for me. They baked me a cake. They they came to my office and brought donuts and coffee. Now they want to do something back as a favor. There's this little, like some people call it a bucket. Some people call it chips in a pile. And you're exchanging these chips back and forth. You're putting chips in their pile. They're taking things out. You bring them donuts. They want to send you a thank you card or call you up and say, hey, here's what we're doing. Goes back and forth, right? So that intentional, I'm doing something for you and you're doing something for me. And it's a yes spiral, and it goes really well. And it keeps circling. And the yeses get bigger and bigger as you go up. And then there's the no spiral. The no spiral is when you say you don't put energy into the relationship. So that bucket or that pile of chips keeps getting more and more empty because they're always getting transactions taken out, but nothing's going back into it. And eventually they're going to start taking chips from your pile. Hey, you owe me. You owe me. You owe me. And this becomes a no spiral. And the no's get bigger and bigger and bigger until you lose the contract. Yep. And so what we see is people circling the drain, and they call us, say, how do I save this? How can I make my clients happier? It's like, dude, you should have started this a year ago. And now they're in a no spiral where they think you hate them.
Yeah.
And this goes for every relationship. Again, business and personal are the same. You have to put energy into them, get that yes spiral going, be intentional about those relationships so that you can intentionally get yeses and affirmations and better communication, better contracts, and more trust. If you ghost, that'll immediately put you into a no spiral because you're always taking chips out of piles.
And that no spiral is hard. Once you realize and identify that, I think the hardest part of that is what you just said, Adam. You should have been identified a long time ago, all right? And really, when we do identify those, it's almost too late, right? There are things you can do to recover. It's hard, but you can't expect a fix to those, all right? So you have to identify a course of action and then stay committed to that. That is actually what's going to fix that. It's not a one email. It's not a new process or workflow. You can't write another rule in Outlook, to fix that problem. It's going to take a commitment, and then it will slowly sometimes resolve. But the good news is it usually does pick up speed. It's a bit of an exponential fix, but it takes real commitment. And that's probably the hardest part about it sometimes. Our job, I don't know, I haven't worked in any other industries too much. I've seen a lot. I've worked with a lot of other industries, sometimes very closely, but I do feel IT struggles a lot with distractions. Right?
Yep.
I think it's the nature of what we do, and there's probably others out there that experience it as well, but it is challenging. So you're going to have to recognize that and make that commitment.
To that end, I talked about this on the podcast before, maybe it was in one of our webinars. Look at medical doctors. Next time you go in for your physical, by the way, everybody, annual, please take care of yourselves. Get the physical, get your blood work done, and watch the doctor. The doctor is 100%, unless they're like I'd say a PA or a nurse practitioner. They tend to be more personable and just comes naturally to them to talk.
Yeah.
But you watch an MD, they're coming in and you can almost see them checking off the list. They know they need to talk to you for 5 minutes in the beginning. They need to do the assessment. They need to get at the end. They need to go back to some personal thing they picked up in the first. And the whole thing takes like 17 minutes.
Yeah.
Right? They've got this down to an art because they're trying to save lives. They've got big problems to deal with. Mm-hmm. They've got an entire area to run. If they don't have a office manager there, they've got to help run the office. Hopefully they have an office manager, but then they move on. But they are trying to be personable with you. They're intentionally being personable with you because they know that this will build a relationship. And if they're good at it, you won't notice what they're doing unless now that I've called it out, you can watch it and you'll see wow, they are good. You should be doing the same thing. You need to walk in, do a segue. You need to have hey, how are you guys doing? How's the business going? Chit chat, pick up on something personal, and then assess what's going on, fix the issue, And then at the end, be like, man, I hope this works out for you. I'm going to check in with you in about a week. By the way, I hope your dog's feeling okay by then.
Yeah.
It's a formula. If you need a formula, that's how the formula works.
Mm-hmm. And to make that really successful, though, you've got to, if you said you were going to check in a week later, check in a week later.
You have to be intentional with your relationships.
Yes. But
when you're intentional with your relationships, good things happen. When you just let things happen by accident, when you just kind of put things off and let just kind of like just break fixing, you're firefighting all the time. You're going to go in some random direction. Some relationships are going to fall off. You won't know why. Some relationships are going to succeed. You won't know why. You're just completely putting things up to random chance. But I'm telling you, as somebody who is very social, if you want to have successful relationships, you have to put energy into them, and you have to deal with them in a way that is positive. If you ghost and just assume that everything's going well, if you decide you don't want to talk to that vendor who's trying to help you, you don't want to talk to that client because there's nothing going wrong, you don't want to talk to that friend because there's no concerts coming up. These things are going to fall apart eventually. Eventually, the whims of fate will take over and reign for you and be like, why do I have such bad luck? Why do I keep losing clients? Why does all this stuff keep happening? It's because you're not being intentional about your relationships. You're ghosting things that just you don't really need to put any effort into.
Yep,
and that's what you need to learn from this. Don't ghost your clients. Don't ghost your vendors. Don't ghost your personal relationships and assume everything's okay.
Yep. A response is a response, right? It doesn't have to be the ultimate answer.
Yeah.
So anything that you can do to keep that communication open will help you out immensely.
And I hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving. This has been a great conversation from Skip and I. I know with family time, you're going to be like, I'm all burnt out of people. I ain't talking to anybody. I'm ghosting the world for the next week after Thanksgiving.
Yep.
So we're coming into the holiday season here. It's hard for some people. We're wrapping up the year. We're getting ready for 2025. We're going to have some great podcasts come here advising you on how to build cadences for 2025, how to get you moving forward, how to be more intentional with your life. So stay tuned for those, and we'll see you later.
Thanks.